Welcome to episode 14 of Angela Watson's Truth for Teachers. I'm your host, Angela Watson, and I'm here to speak life, encouragement, and truth into the minds and hearts of educators and get you energized for the week ahead. Today, Dave Burgess of Teach Like a Pirate fame is here to share some thoughts on how to collaborate with colleagues who don't share your vision or support your creativity and innovation. Visit truthforteachers.com to get the transcript, links to recommended resources, and to share your thoughts on the show. We'd love to hear from you. So, before I bring Dave on, I want to introduce a new episode format that I'm going to be trying out in episode 16. It's going to be called Ask Angela Anything. And this was a feature that I actually had on my blog for many years. My blog is thecornerstoneforteachers.com. So I had this feature there, and teachers could type in their questions into this Google form, so it was anonymous, and I would answer them on the blog. And I used to answer 3 or 4 questions per post, and it was a pretty popular advice column as these things go, I guess, but I felt like the posts were getting to be too long. Some of the questions were really deep, and I couldn't answer them in just a few sentences in any real meaningful way. And they might have been too specific to a particular teacher's situation to warrant their own blog post. So I just kind of quietly ended the series, and if someone ever happens to stumble on an old post and they submit a really good question, I might sometimes answer it in a random blog post. But I thought that Ask Angela Anything might be kind of a fun feature to revive here on the podcast. So there's a free web tool, and it's called SpeakPipe. And it lets you basically record a voice message on your computer or on your phone or mobile device. So if you go to truthforteachers.com, which redirects you to my main website, you will see a SpeakPipe option. The box says Start Recording. And when you hit that button, it will record your question for me anonymously if you want it to be. And then I can include it on a future episode of the show and record an answer for you. Now, if you don't want your voice on the podcast, I also have the Google form available, and you can just type your question in anonymously. But I hope that you will leave an audio recording because I think that's more interesting for podcast listeners, and people want to hear your actual voice. So if you have a question you'd like me to answer here on the podcast, go to truthforteachers.com and let me know via audio, the SpeakPipe button, or via the Google form. And then once a month or maybe once every other month, depending on how many relevant questions I get, I'll answer them in an episode of the podcast called Ask Angela Anything. The first episode like that is going to be in just a couple weeks. It's going to be episode 16. So stay tuned for that. For today's episode, I am thrilled to have my friend Dave Burgess here. I just admire him so much. I've had the privilege of hearing him speak many times, and his messages always really resonate with me. So without further ado, I'm going to let Dave have the floor.
Hi, this is Dave Burgess, author of Teach Like a Pirate, and I really want to thank Angela for inviting me to be a guest on the podcast. I think it's a fantastic podcast, which is really reaching the hearts of a lot of teachers, which is why it's resonating and becoming so popular. So thank you so much, Angela. My story today is about something I overheard while I was setting up for a seminar. I was in a room one night setting up my Teach Like a Pirate seminar for the next morning, and I overheard a teacher talking to her mentor saying that, you know what, I'm new, this is my first year teaching, and I came into this profession with so much excitement, so much creativity, so much that I thought that I had to share, and I was so excited about designing all these new and creative lesson plans, and then as soon as I got on my campus, I ran into the people that were on my team, the teachers in my department, and they didn't share my excitement. And they tell me, no, this is the way that we do things around here. And they've pretty much rejected all of these ideas that I want to try in my classroom. And so I feel stifled. And she was almost in tears when she was sharing this story. And I just wanted to turn around and invite her to come to the Teach Like a Pirate the next day, because I hear a lot of that from teachers where they feel like they are trapped and they feel confined by being a part of a team that maybe is not as creative as them. Maybe they're at a school which isn't as forward thinking as they are. Maybe they're not feeling that they're getting the chance to express themselves. And so I always tell people that, you know what? Teaching is a triple Venn diagram. There are 3 interlocking circles. First, you have the content circle. You're going to share that with the other people on your team. You're going to share that with the people that are at your grade level teaching your subject matter. And then there's a second circle, which is your techniques and your methods. And you're probably going to share those as well. You're going to have lots of techniques and methods that you work on together that you've learned through your credential program, through professional development seminars and all that. But then there's this third circle that nobody's talking about, and I love to talk to people about. And that third circle is presentation. How are you going to present it in such a way that it's relevant for kids? How are you going to present it in such a way that it's meaningful and that it draws kids in almost magically, magnetically to what you're doing in the classroom? And that is your opportunity to be you. What is unique about you, your particular strengths and talents, and your voice that you add to your classroom is what makes you most powerful and effective with students. Not only does it make you most powerful and effective, it also helps to personalize you for your students. So like many teachers can identify with this where like they've seen one of their students outside of the school setting, and they found that student almost shocked to see them. It's like almost like they run into a glass window or something. I am at the movies and one of my students sees me. He's like, oh, Mr. Burgess, like, what are you doing here? And I say, well, actually, Stephen, I am a human being. I exist outside of the 4 walls of my classroom. I don't sleep in the cupboards or anything. And so when you bring more of yourself to work, you'll experience that less often. So I'm trying to bring more of myself to work. We're at work too high of a percentage of our lives to unplug ourselves when we walk through the doors of the schoolhouse. So I'm always trying to find ways to add my unique voice, what is unique about me, my strengths, my passions into my classroom. And that's in my presentation. So even though I teach the same subject as the teachers at the same grade level, same curriculum as me, that doesn't mean that I have to teach just like them. I call it collaboration versus collaboration. COLL collaboration versus KILL collaboration. Collaboration is about making all of us better. It's not about making all of us the same. It's about improving our practice, not simply standardizing it. And so even if you're a part of a PLC, you're a part of a team or whatever it might be, that's content, that's techniques, that's methods. Maybe you'll share assessments, all of that, but you can still add what is unique about you, your particular touch to your classroom through your presentation. My favorite Christmas carol in the whole wide world, and it has been for my whole life, has been The Little Drummer Boy. And I've loved the idea that here's this boy who, he doesn't have money, he doesn't have the finer gifts that everybody else is bringing, but what he has is what is unique about him, is he can play his drum, and so that's what he does. And really, that's what it's all about. Forget about all the things you can't control and play your drum to the best of your abilities. Nothing else really matters. You can offer no finer gift or higher honor to the world than to find out what your drum is and then play it for all it's worth. That's what I think teachers need to do, is be less concerned about what other people are doing, less concerned about fitting in, but finding that drum that you play better than anyone else in the world, and then being willing to play it for all it's worth. So again, I want to thank Angela so much for having me here onto the podcast. I hope that this is a message that's resonated with you, and feel free to connect with me. I would love to talk to you more about these ideas.
Thank you, Dave. I am so glad you shared that with us. I love that Dave is so passionate about so many of the same issues that I'm passionate about. I think this was the perfect follow-up to so many things that we have talked about here on the podcast. In particular, I'm thinking of episode 7, when I shared with you the story of how I made that huge mistake in emulating another teacher's style of running the classroom instead of being true to who I was. And as I think back on that and I reflect on what Dave just shared, I'm realizing more than ever how important it is for teachers to feel confident in expressing their unique personalities. If you want to really enjoy teaching, you've got to bring your authentic self into the classroom and share who you are with the kids. Embrace those characteristics that make you unique. You might be teaching the same content as your colleagues, but you do not have to totally remove yourself and your personality from the equation. Sharing your real and authentic self is what makes your lessons memorable, and it's what makes them enjoyable both for you and the kids. So Dave is super active on Twitter, so if you want to connect with him, his Twitter handle is @BurgessDave, BURGESS, Dave, DAVE. And you can also leave a question or a comment for Dave and I on the podcast blog. Go to truthforteachers.com and click on View All Podcast Episodes. You'll look for episode 14. That's the one with Dave, and that's where you can leave your comment. So thanks once again for listening. Have a fantastic week. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be worth it.